All right, guys, we're going to do a quick lesson on factors and finding the greatest common factor. So let's go ahead and get started. Make sure you have a notes page. You want to title that notes page Factors, and you want to make sure and put the date at the top right-hand corner. All right, so let's define what factors are. Factors, it's a number that divides evenly into another number with no remainder. So if you look at my example here, 42 divided by 7 is going to give me 6. So that means that both 7 and 6 are factors of 42 because they go into 42 evenly with no remainder. Okay, so let me ask you a couple questions then. So is 6 a factor of 35? So in your mind, you should think, does 6 times something give me 35? And that's no. So that means that 6 is not a factor of 35. Is 8 a factor of 63? So in your mind, you should think, does 8 times something give me 63? Again, that's no. Is 12 a factor of 72? Does 12 times something give me 72? Well, 12 times 6 is 72, so yes, it is a factor. And is 9 a factor of 12? 9 times something does not give me 12, so 9 is not a factor. Okay? If you don't know that definition of factor, go ahead and write it down, pause the video, and come back. When you want to list the factors, sometimes some of you might have know what the rainbow method is. It's basically just making sure that you get all of those factors. So if I have the factors of 36, I want to start with 1. 1 times what? Well, 1 times 36. Then go to the next number, 2 times 18. Then 3 times 12. 4 times 9. I don't have a 5. And then 6 times 6. That lets me know that I'm finished. So sometimes you might use that, and that will help you to make sure that you get all of the factors. So let's test that out a couple times. I want you to find all the factors of 24. So you could do something like this: 1 times 24. And you can list 2 times 12. I particularly like the rainbow method. So I go 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. There is no 5, and I already have 6, so that means that's all my factors. Okay, I'm going to do it again for 16. I have 1 times 16, 2 and 8. There's no 3, and then it's 4 times 4, so that means I'm finished. Okay, why don't you go ahead and do the next 2? Do them on your paper. I'm going to be looking for that to make sure you do those 2 problems. So go ahead and pause the video and come back and check your answer. All right, check your answers. If you did the rainbow method, hopefully you got that 18 because you knew 2 times something gave me 18, because that was a little bit a harder one. You might not have known that one. All right, let's look at another thing. All right, so now we're going to move on to the greatest common factor. So we're going to list all of the factors of 15. So that's 1 and 15, 3 and 5. So those are all my factors. I'm going to list my factors of 18, 1 and 18, 2 and 9, and 3 and 6. Those are all my factors. So common factors that they have, so they have common factors of 1 and 3. So those are their common factors. But that greatest common factor, or GCF, is 3. That is the largest factor that they have in common. Okay, that's the greatest common factor. Here's another way you might see factors. If you look, here's a Venn diagram. These in this circle are all of the factors of 24. In this circle are all of the factors of 20. In the middle is the factors that they share, but the greatest common factor would be 5 because that is the greatest factor that they share. Now you might be asking yourself, why exactly do I need to know all this? The biggest reason you need to know that is because when we start simplifying fractions or reducing fractions, so you're going to have to know common factors, and really more importantly, the greatest common factor. If you know that greatest common factor, it's going to save you time. So let's look at my fraction here, 18 over 22 or 24. So you could recognize that it's even. So if I divide it by 2, I get 9/12. but then I recognize I can divide that by 3, and I get 3/4. So that's my answer. 2 is a common factor, 3 is a common factor. But if you knew right off the top that a greatest common factor is 6, then if you divided 18 by 6, you get 3, 24 divided by 6, and you get 4. And that is your final answer. Okay, let's look at these, 36 and 48. If I know off the top of my head, the greatest common factor, they have a lot of common factors, but the greatest common factor would be 12. So if I divide them both by 12, I get 3/4. Ooh, I must like that. Okay, 3/4. Now, you may have forgotten that 12 is the greatest common factor. Maybe you saw right off the top that 6 was a factor and you thought that was the greatest common factor. You would have gotten 6/8, but then hopefully you realized that that was still even and you could have divided by 2 and gotten 3/4. Okay? All right, why don't you go ahead and take a couple minutes, do these two problems, pause the video, and come back when you're finished. All right, check your answers. Hope you got the right answers here. Again, 18/30, if by chance you didn't know that 6 was the greatest common factor and you divided by 2 to start with, you would have had to have divided again to end up with 3/5. Remember, knowing that greatest common factor is really going to save you time. Okay? All right, now it's your turn. You have 8 problems that you need to do, so pause the video, and this is what your teacher is going to check tomorrow. So you need to pause the video, and for 1 through 3, you need to list all of the factors. 4 and 5, you need to just list their greatest common factor. And then for 6, 7, and 8, you are going to simplify these fractions into lowest terms. All right, have a great